While society encourages us to showcase our achievements and abilities, true wisdom often lies in the opposite strategy. Schopenhauer, in his deep reflections on the human condition, believed that simulating simplicity was not only an act of cleverness, but an essential strategy for surviving in social dynamics filled with envy and ego. This is not a tactic for deception, but a tool for protecting and enhancing one's own development. We live in a world where social comparison fuels silent resentments and where intelligence is often met with distrust. Those who stand out too much run the risk of attracting hostility, and those who fail to balance their image with others' expectations end up isolated. However, pretending to be foolish is more than just a defense. It is a strategic move that redefines relationships and expands one's field of influence. What may seem like a superficial limitation is, in reality, a skillfully manipulated game of perceptions. This concept, which also resonates in the writings of Balthasar Gracian and Carl Jung, can be practically applied in multiple areas of life, from professional environments to the most subtle personal interactions. Those who learn to master the art of appearing to be less than they truly are discover a silent power that disarms rivals and creates space for true excellence to emerge. The paradox of intellect, a double-edged sword. Human intellect is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it is the spark that sets us apart, a tool that enables profound advancements such as the creation of art and scientific progress. On the other hand, as Schopenhauer keenly observed, this same intellect can be a source of isolation and hostility. When a person excessively demonstrates their intellectual superiority, especially in competitive social environments, it can spark envy and resentment. Consider a genius who, by standing out in a room, is immediately perceived as a threat, not because they have done anything wrong, but because they have exposed the insecurities of others. This happens not only in the workplace, but even among friends and family. Schopenhauer described envy as one of the most corrosive yet common emotions in human nature. When we stand out intellectually, it is easy to be seen as pretentious or arrogant, even if our only intention is to share knowledge. This psychological phenomenon can be understood through the lens of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which shows how those with less skill tend to overestimate themselves, while those who are highly competent are often underestimated or misunderstood. In human relationships, this imbalance can lead to silent resentments that manifest as criticism or passive-aggressive behavior. Why highly intelligent people often hide their abilities, it is no surprise that many highly intelligent individuals choose to downplay their intellect. This is not a choice based on cowardice, but on social strategy. Human dynamics are full of defense mechanisms where the ego seeks to protect itself at all costs. Demonstrating humility, even when we know we could dominate, is an effective way to avoid unnecessary conflicts. This is where Carl Jung's archetype of the fool comes into play. In many scenarios, appearing simple not only protects an individual, but also allows them to learn and connect better with others. A historical example of this can be seen in Albert Einstein, known for his unassuming attitude. Despite being an undeniable genius, he often referred to himself as merely a curious person. This strategy allowed him to navigate gracefully in a world filled with inflated egos. This approach demonstrates that by deliberately minimizing our perceived superiority, we create a safer space for social relationships to flourish. Thus, the true challenge of intellect is not just developing it, but managing it wisely. Knowing when to showcase our abilities and when to strategically step back is an art that few master. After all, intelligence is not just about knowing more, it is about knowing how to use that knowledge. The power of pretending to be foolish. As we explore the strategy of pretending to be foolish, Schopenhauer's proposal may surprise us even more. At first glance, this idea seems counterintuitive in a world that places such high value on the appearance of competence. However, it is precisely in this paradox that its effectiveness lies. Schopenhauer argued that downplaying one's intelligence in certain contexts is a social survival strategy that can reduce conflicts and protect those who use it. In highly competitive environments, displaying excessive skill or knowledge can generate distrust or even hostility. By adopting an attitude of simplicity, an individual not only reduces external threats, but also creates opportunities to better observe the dynamics around them. This does not mean underestimating oneself or ignoring one's intelligence, but rather adjusting it to fit the environment. A clear example can be found in the corporate world. A professional who constantly shares their most brilliant ideas in meetings may unintentionally provoke resentment from colleagues or superiors. On the other hand, someone who strategically shares their contributions and presents them as collective efforts rather than individual achievements tends to gain more acceptance. This approach is not a sign of weakness, but of cunning. Jung's archetype of the fool is particularly relevant here. He described this figure as someone who appears simple, but actually possesses underestimated wisdom. Acting this way allows individuals to buy time to analyze the situation, understand the motivations of others, and adjust their actions accordingly. This strategy not only protects the individual, but also grants them greater control over social dynamics. When executed well, it can diffuse conflicts and prevent the risks of overexposure. Mastering social perception for success. Baltasar Gracian also advised the skill of appearing to be less than one truly is in order to attract less resistance. He firmly believed that the secret to social success lies in knowing how to manipulate perception. For example, a student who appears humble and eager to learn can, over time, surpass more boastful peers who end up alienating professors and classmates. This teaches us the importance of active humility, where apparent simplicity becomes a powerful tool that opens doors that pride and arrogance would close. Thus, pretending to be foolish does not mean denying one's intelligence, but rather channeling it to achieve more effective goals. In a world dominated by ego and social comparison, this strategy not only reduces conflicts, but also protects against the emotional exhaustion they cause. The trap of social comparison. Social comparison is a trap as common as it is destructive in human relationships. From an early age, we learn to measure ourselves against others, whether in terms of appearance, intelligence, or material success. Schopenhauer warned of the dangers of living for external validation, as it condemns us to constant dissatisfaction. Social media has amplified this phenomenon, presenting success as a finished product without the context of the effort behind it. To avoid falling into resentment, Schopenhauer advocated for the pursuit of internal satisfaction independent of external validation. However, Jung argued that, in controlled doses, social comparison can serve as a tool for self-knowledge. The real challenge is to transform this tendency into a source of motivation and learning, rather than a source of frustration. Thus, the key is not just intelligence itself, but the ability to use it wisely.